Life has a way of throwing surprises at you when you least expect them. That's exactly what happened to me on what should have been just another ordinary Wednesday evening. I had just arrived home from work, the sound of my heels clicking against the wooden floor as I stepped inside. The day had been long and draining, and all I wanted was to sink into a hot bath and let the stress dissolve. Little did I know, that evening would carve an unforgettable moment into my life, one that would alter the course of everything in our household. The house was unusually quiet when I walked in, but that wasn't anything out of the ordinary. My husband, Thomas, had mentioned earlier that he would be working late. He had been pulling extra hours to meet an important project deadline. That meant Logan, his son from a previous marriage, was the only one home. Logan was 20, a reserved but well-mannered young man. He worked part-time at the local hardware store and spent most of his time in his room. Though we weren't particularly close, we had developed a quiet understanding over the years. I had grown used to the stillness of the house whenever it was just the two of us. As I set my bag down on the kitchen counter and poured myself a glass of water, my eyes wandered toward the driveway. Logan's truck was parked outside. That was strange. He usually worked the night shift. I called out his name, my voice echoing through the empty house. No response. I assumed he was in his room, either lost in music with his headphones on or fast asleep, so I brushed off the concern. After finishing my water, I headed upstairs to change into something more comfortable. As I passed by the bathroom, I heard the faint sound of running water. The door was slightly ajar, which struck me as odd. Logan was particular about his privacy. He always kept doors closed, especially the bathroom door. Curiosity stirred inside me. I hesitated before gently nudging the door open just a little more. What I saw made me freeze in place. Logan stood at the sink with his back to me, his shoulders tense, his movements hurried, almost frantic. He was shirtless, his jeans hanging loosely on his hips. In his hands, he clutched a washcloth, scrubbing vigorously at something out of sight. The faint creak of the door must have alerted him. He whipped around, his wide eyes filled with panic. "Oh my God! I didn't hear you come in," he stammered, his voice shaky. I stood there, equally startled, my gaze darting between him and the washcloth. A sudden wave of embarrassment hit me. I hadn't expected this. Guilt pricked at me for intruding on his space. I'm so sorry," I stuttered, quickly looking away. "I didn't mean to invade your privacy." Heart pounding, I stepped back, reaching for the doorknob to close the door and give him the space he clearly needed. But before I could, his voice stopped me. "Wait," he said, his tone pleading. "It's not what you think." I hesitated. A part of me wanted to walk away and forget this ever happened, but another part, curious, concerned, kept me rooted in place. There was no defensiveness in his voice, no anger or frustration. Instead, it was laced with embarrassment and something deeper. Desperation. Against my better judgment, I lingered. I turned back to face him, keeping my tone steady. "Okay," I said carefully. "What's going on?" Logan lowered his gaze. His face flushed with a deep shade of red. He fumbled with the washcloth in his hands, struggling to find the right words. After a moment, he let out a heavy sigh. "I didn't know who else to ask," he admitted. "Ask about what?" I pressed gently, my curiosity growing despite the awkwardness of the moment. He shifted uncomfortably, still avoiding my eyes. "It's personal," he muttered. "I've been dealing with something and I don't know what to do. Dad's not here and you're the only person I can talk to." His vulnerability caught me off guard. Logan had always been independent, keeping to himself and rarely opening up. The fact that he was reaching out to me now made me pause. Taking a slow breath, I stepped into the bathroom, pulling the door slightly closed behind me. "All right," I said gently. "Tell me what's going on." At first, his words came out hesitant, vague, as if he wasn't sure how to say what was on his mind. But as he continued, it became clear. This was something deeply personal, something he was too embarrassed to discuss with his father. I listened patiently, piecing together what he was trying to say. The more he spoke, the more I felt a pang of sympathy. It's never easy to ask for help, especially with something so private. I could see the conflict in his expression, the struggle between needing guidance and fearing judgment. After a moment of thought, I nodded. First of all, I think it's good that you're paying attention to these things. Shows that you care about your health. And second, there's absolutely no shame in asking questions or seeking advice. Logan finally looked up at me. His eyes filled with a mix of relief and hesitation. Really? You don't think this is weird? Not at all, I reassured him. Everyone has questions about their body. It's completely normal. For the next few minutes, I did my best to offer practical advice, keeping the conversation straightforward and matter-of-fact to ease his embarrassment. As we talked, I noticed the tension in his shoulders slowly melt away. The initial awkwardness faded, replaced by something else: trust. By the time our conversation ended, Logan seemed visibly calmer. He even managed a small, grateful smile. "Thank you," he said softly. "I didn't think I had anyone to talk to about this." I returned his smile, feeling a warmth spread through me. "You always do, Logan. You're not alone." As I stepped out of the bathroom, a strange mix of emotions swirled inside me. Relief for sure, but also something else. I couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted between us, something significant. That night, Thomas came home late, exhausted but in good spirits, completely unaware of the conversation that had unfolded in his absence. As I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, I found myself replaying the evening's events. Something had changed between Logan and me. I just didn't know what it meant yet. But one thing was certain: life in our household would never be quite the same again.